Welcome back. I hope my audio is doing better. I inadvertently watched Clyde do something's live stream there, and so long story short, I fall asleep watching YouTube videos, and sometimes I actually fall asleep, and then I wake up and I turn off, the YouTube, and it just so happened that when I woke up, I heard my voice, and I'm like, oh, it must be my video that's playing. And it just so happened that Clyde do something brought me up in his live stream, and I woke up to my voice, which is creepy. It's a weird feeling. Anyways, one of the things is that apparently my volume was not correct, so I did change some of the volume settings. So for those who may have had issues in the past, I hope everything's corrected. But let's get into stroke season. Um, because I literally just talked about myself for 30 seconds. So anyways, let's talk about the stroke season. So this is something that's kind of being going around recently, being talked about a little bit on Twitter, Facebook, all these other socials. And it kind of makes me wonder what's going on, right? Like what's causing the stroke season and what's all this other stuff. Now, it looks like the flu itself may be causing the stroke season. But at the same time, the flu vaccine helps prevent stroke even without a flu infection. So whether you get the flu or you don't get the flu after having the flu vaccine, you may actually be protected more from having a stroke than you would have previously. So that's interesting. I find that quite interesting. And I wanted to get away from the COVID vaccine for a little bit and talk about something different. So let's get into a video with a doctor. Don't know his name. Oh, Dr. Raj Bardwaj. I butchered that. I apologize. Anyways, let's see what he has to say. So I'm going to show a couple or two little clips from this.
So what is this link between influenza, infection, and stroke?
Yeah, I didn't know about this either until last year, but it turns out that after flu season, about 3 or 4 weeks later, there is a stroke season. And like you said, most of Canada is getting down off of a big hump of flu. So now we're starting to see more strokes. And a friend.
All right, so just to give you an idea, I don't want to go too much further. So he's saying that you get the flu and there's a higher stroke count after the flu, and yeah, so that's interesting because that's not what the study that I found says. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to put all this down in the description so you can go take a look at it. But let's go ahead to this part here, and we'll see what he's saying on that.
So as for how a flu shot might lower your risk, we know that when your body fights a big infection like influenza, there's a sort of a system-wide inflammatory response. And that inflammation can cause problems with the pipes. It can make the inside of the pipes stickier. It can make your blood a little bit thicker, especially if you get dehydrated. And it can even put the heart into a weird rhythm called atrial fibrillation.
All right, so atrial fibrillation is something that the flu vaccine actually does help prevent, in a sense, from what I've been able to research. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, but from what I'm able to pick up from multiple different sources, not just looking at one, I look at many different sources to be able to understand certain, aspects of things like this. It looks like that the flu vaccine actually does help prevent against serious heart conditions and failures and stuff like that. It's not a guarantee, and that's why it's always recommended for people with those kinds of conditions to get the flu vaccine because it'll help out in the end. So let's take a look at the study. So this was done by the University of Calgary. Sorry, I need to pull up the screen so I can. There we go. And it's the flu vaccines lower the risk of stroke. So this was back in November 2nd of 2022. So it's a relatively new one. Now, what they did is they looked at a bunch of Albertans. They got the health data, you know, within privacy rights, to be able to figure out, how many people ended up getting, the flu vaccine, how many people had a stroke, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they used the whole population of Alberta. There was another study that was done with the whole population of, I think, Taiwan with hypertension and stuff like that. I didn't really get a chance to fully read through that, but essentially over a 9-year period, they went through the data and they were trying to figure out whether or not the flu vaccine actually did help prevent strokes. And this is this is just a summary of the whole situation. So, they did their thing. I just pretty much explained this whole top section here. And the flu shot is known to reduce the risk of heart attack and hospitalization for those with heart disease. We wanted to find out whether the vaccine has the same protective qualities for those at risk of stroke. Our findings show the risk of stroke is lower among those who have recently had a flu shot. This was true for all adults and not just those at high risk of, having a stroke. Now, I did read through probably about 80% of the study. There's a lot of words and I get bored, with certain words. But they never said that they never did a tie with the flu shot, getting influenza, and also the risk of stroke. And that's what the doctor in the previous video was talking about, was those things. Now, he is a doctor, so we can assume that he is seeing this on the front lines and stuff like this. These people at the University of Calgary may not actually be practicing doctors with humans, right? They may just be kind of, looking at data and stuff like that. Like, I have no clue about these people, like what they're doing. I didn't look that up. My bad. But anyways, let's take a look at this part here. Hill says the potential benefit of influenza vaccine for stroke prevention is a new finding that he hopes will lead to more research about the indirect protective factors of the flu vaccine and other vaccines. So this right here, indirect protective factors, means that the vaccine itself is helping stop stroke. Of course, there's many different ways that can happen. I'm not going to speculate because I have no real clue about any other things to do with the flu vaccine because I haven't really looked it up. But I can say that there's a few different types, or there's two different types of flu vaccines. There's unattenuated something, and there's also inactivated. So inactivated is a dead version of the virus that then gets put into your system, so your system can then fight off that or the infection. And also then there's the unattenuated one, and that one essentially is a weakened version of the flu, which actually does give better protection because it's the actual flu, just weakened. It's not a dead version of it, right? So, that's as much as I know about those vaccines. I don't know any more about what they cause in your body. Maybe they cause some sort of blood thinning, aspect to it, which could be good for, strokes, because people who are at risk of stroke have to take blood thinners. So maybe it does something along those lines, or, I don't know. I mean, you let me know. I'm going to put down the links in my description of this video so you can take a look at it. I was hoping this video would be shorter, so if you stuck around this long, I really appreciate you doing so. And yeah, you guys have yourself a wonderful day, and stay tuned for more content, as I am doing my absolute best to get as many videos out as possible. I have so much going on in my life right now, but there is one video that might be coming out. I have to do research and verify whether things are true or not. It has to do with, let's say, land use. So if you own land and you have farm and stuff like that, and the possibility of the government stepping in and stopping you from doing things that you should be allowed to do, maybe an effort to take back the land so they can build 15-minute cities, which is essentially a city where you live, where you can get around on foot, on bike, or in vehicle to everywhere within 15 minutes. So that's a possibility of a video. I don't know if any of that is true yet, so I'm just letting you know. Stay tuned, as I am doing my absolute best to research that as well, along with all the other things. So you have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later.